Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Atheist Experience. And I find it kind of amusing that they censored the title, but we still played the audio. But we are live. It's Sunday, April 23rd, 2006. This is a live public access call-in television program allowing atheists the opportunity to speak to the community and the community the chance to call in and talk to us, ask us questions, discuss various issues. I'm your host, Matt Dillahunty, and joining me this week is Don Baker.
Hello, good to be here. I'm doing fine.
Don picked our music, so you can blame him.
It's all my fault.
No, I love it. I just find it really funny. We apologize if anybody was actually offended by that. Although, you need to probably get out a little bit more if that's offensive. We're sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. This program is aired live every Sunday from 4:30 to 6 and is available by download at our website, www.atheist-community.org, and via podcast. In addition to this program, the ACA also sponsors a bi-weekly internet audio program called The Nonprofits, hosted by Jeff D., co-hosted by Dennis Louvet, and featuring Russell Glasser and myself. We were live yesterday, and we'll be live again on May 6th. For more information, you can go to nonprofitsradio.com. To tune in live on those Saturdays, visit freethoughtradio.com, and you can also get more information about this at the Atheist Experience website as well. We have a lecture series that we host once a month. Today was our lecture series. Unfortunately, didn't quite pan out the way we planned. But do you have the date for the next lecture?
The 21st of May.
Be May 21st.
The third Sunday is usually when it is.
Yeah. Most lectures are on the third Sunday. They're at the Austin History Center at the corner of 9th and Guadalupe. Next month's lecturer will be our own Mark Lowy, who will blow your quantum mind with a lecture about muon-catalyzed nuclear fusion. So we cover a broad range of topics. If you're interested in stuff like that, please feel free to come on down to the History Center and join us. We have a number of social events in addition to the programs and the lectures. For example, on Thursdays we have Atheist Happy Hour, and we're currently at Ninfa's on Anderson Lane near 183 and I-35. That begins at 7:30. It's a chance to come down, have some dinner and drinks, discussion, meet some of the ACA folks who you may not see on the television, because in addition to myself and the co-hosts who join us, there are a number of people behind the scenes who do a lot of great work for us, getting us on the air, getting the downloadable audio ready to go, the podcasting, and a bunch of ACA members who provide us a lot of good information. And if I say something particularly insightful on the show, odds are I probably stole it from one of those people, because we got a great group of folks, and you're welcome to come down and join us. And one of those opportunities to join us will be today and any Sunday after the program, which finishes at 6 o'clock. We've been going to dinner, the cast and crew, and we invite some of the viewers to come down and join us at Threadgill's on Riverside. We normally get there between 6:30 and 6:45. As with all of our events, any atheist or atheist-friendly people are welcome to attend. You don't have to be a member. But if you're coming down to preach or proselytize, please don't do that. We're trying to enjoy our meal, and if you want to, you can call in. We'll have the number up for you shortly. In addition to the other reminders, there's a special reminder that on May 7th, we will be holding elections for ACA board positions. All ACA members should have received a packet of information regarding that. If you haven't, you should soon. And if you don't, go to the website, atheist-community.org, or email contact one of the current board members to get the information you need. That'll be at the Brick Oven?
Brick Oven Pizza, right, in the Arboretum area.
Right. That's May 7th. So, even if you're not involved in a lot of other activities, if you are an ACA member, and if you have been, we'll have somebody on hand to renew memberships. It's a good idea to come down and vote. Make sure you voice your opinion on what the organization's doing, and even at that level of involvement, you're helping all of us out. And on that note, anybody who doesn't manage to get through on the telephone or doesn't want to get through on the telephone, you're free to email tv@atheist-community.org. That email goes to all the cast and crew of the show. We try to answer them as quickly as we can. But now that we're international via podcast, and we're starting to get lots more emails from people around the world, and we, by the way, appreciate all of you listening and spreading the word to your friends. There's no guarantee that you're going to get a response right away, but we will do what we can to answer you. And thanks again. Don, you got stuff for us?
Yeah. Today, you know, I listen to the podcast of the show when I'm driving because it takes a big chunk of time to sit in front of the TV, and I listen to the radio show and such. And we've had all sorts of interesting topics lately. We had Russell talk about these communities that huddle off and have their own little laws and things.
Little hostile takeovers.
Right, little hostile takeovers. We have. We've had Tim on the show, who happens to be in our audience right now, talk about lots of genetic stuff. We've had, what else? We had Jeff D. talk about some of the birth defects that are being created in some of these Mormon enclaves where they don't let the women out to see the light of day, that sort of thing. Anyway, so I thought I'd sort of pick some of these things up, and I got to thinking, well, what does this all have in common? Is inbreeding. Is that you know, if you have groups huddling together and trying to maintain the integrity of their religion and such, you're going to put up walls, and you're going to hold everybody in, and maybe try to transmit that religion to the next generation, but you're going to basically have a limited gene pool. So I wanted to talk about inbreeding and incest and this odd connection between that and religion.
When you're talking about inbreeding in that sort of generic sense, are you talking about more of a kind of like just a narrowed gene pool, like you would see among like white supremacists who want to keep their genetic lines pure, and while they may not be having intercourse with their immediate relatives, they're a small little community that's doing this.
That's right, and you see that in the Amish that want to sort of keep purity of their group, or in some of these religions, there's this notion of a royal line or a lineage of people who are special, and so people want to sort of mate with them, right? And so what happens is you end up with a large population of people that are related to one guy, right? But then the next generation ends up all being related, so they've effectively reduced the gene pool that way. So this is the sort of thing I'm talking about, and it's in the news. I mean, the Christians are very much seem to be very much for this because we have this South Dakota abortion law. I don't want to talk too much about abortion today because I want to hit that next month. That'll be my topic next month. So, you know, tune your TVs in for that. This South Dakota abortion law, if you haven't been paying attention, they've passed a law that makes it a felony for doctors to perform any abortion except to save the life of a pregnant woman. There is not an exclusion for the case of rape, incest, or the health of a woman. Okay, because these folks feel that these special circumstances would have diluted the bill in its impact. So they're actually using this law as a political tool, and there's a whole movement about that challenging Roe versus Wade at the Supreme Court. So that's what they're trying to do with it. But these poor women in the state are being messed with by this thing.
There were some problems that that don't necessarily feed into what you're talking about with inbreeding. Problems with this bill that we had noticed and pointed out before, where the doctor was the one held responsible, yet there was no responsibility on the part of the mother. So they're creating a line of responsibility which seems to contradict other laws. And also the penalty for this particular law, they're equating it to murder, but they're providing a penalty which is far less than murder. So it's like, isn't it like 5 years?
I think so. I to be honest, I don't have that in front of me.
So they want to play it up as though the fetus is a human, and if you kill it, then that's murder, and we're going to give you 5 years. And yet they don't recognize that if you kill a non-fetus, if you kill me, for example, you don't just get 5 years. Mm-hmm. You're probably going to get life or multiple life sentences. So they're still they're valuing the fetus as less than a human and not recognizing that they're doing so.
Right. So personally, I think this exclusion about rape and incest is sort of beyond the pale. I mean, I can understand that some people think that abortion is killing of a person, and I can that makes sense to me that a person might believe that. But this whole idea of that if you're going to be raped, that you're going to have to carry this child and raise it or whatever, or if the child is related to you above and beyond. Anyway, so that's just crazy in my opinion. So what are these people thinking? And to be sure, this is a Christian movement doing this. This is Christians trying to challenge Roe versus Wade, and this is the means by which they're doing it. Apparently, these people behind this feel that abortions are performed for what they call convenience, and that if you make exceptions for rape or an incest or the health of a mother, it ends up being an escape route for people to get abortions when they're not supposed to. So there's this guy, Bill Napoli, who is a South Dakota senator, who thought that the risking the life of the mother was sufficient exclusion, that was good enough, right? And he says that a real life exclusion to me would be a rape victim, brutally raped, savaged. The girl was a virgin. She was religious. She planned on saving her virginity until she was married. She was brutalized and raped, sodomized as bad as you can possibly make it, and impregnated. I mean, that girl would be so messed up physically and psychologically that carrying the child would very well threaten her life. So this is the thinking that goes behind this bill.
So that's his exception. So if there's a girl who's brutally raped and savaged,
and not sodomized,
and is a virgin, but isn't religious, then that's not the exception.
That's right.
She has to be all of those things: religious, virgin, saving herself from marriage, savagely raped. If she's just averagely raped, is mild type rapes, then she's not the exception.
Yep, she wasn't a virgin. She was asking for it.
This sort of thinking it baffles me. Yeah. I mean, I don't care where anybody particularly stands with regard to evolution, or with regard to abortion and abortion laws. I think that regardless of your position, you should be able to look at the language of the law and the comments made by people like Bill Napoli and say, this doesn't make sense. It doesn't matter whether I am pro-choice or pro-life. It doesn't matter whether I approve of the abortion laws as they are, or whether I think that killing is a baby, a fetus is a baby, and killing it is murder. You can still look at this stuff and say, this just doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. You're making, exceptions and fine-tuning and ducking and dodging in order to manipulate things to a particular worldview, and that's just not the way we should go about making laws.
Well, their goal is to challenge this Supreme Court ruling, right? So to hell with the people that are being affected by this law, right?
They're just important. Wanting to get something in so that they can go head up against Roe v. Wade.
So there's a blog called the Digby. Digby has a blog, and he called this the sodomized virgin exception, and that's kind of a little buzzword that's floating around for this law. There's also bumper stickers being created calling South Dakota the back alley abortion state. I think this law could be appropriately called the "Don't Ask, Don't Abort the Monster" law.
I know why he had to go to such extremes in his explanation.
Why is that?
Because if you have, let's say, a religious woman who's a virgin and saving herself for marriage, and she's simply impregnated beyond her will, well, that's the Virgin Mary. So obviously we have to add in those. Oh, it must have been a particularly savage and unwanted,
Well, she didn't practice abstinence, that's for sure, right? So, with this incest thing, whoever could be savagely raping somebody could be the father or something, and this woman's got to carry the thing. So I'm actually very mystified by this whole exclusion on incest. So I got to thinking, and you go look through the Bible and start thinking about this incest and inbreeding thing, and there's just all over the place in the Bible, especially with the sort of main characters, like right from the beginning, Adam and Eve, right? We have two people created from whole cloth, right, or at least Adam was, or whole dirt, whatever. Eve from Adam's rib, so maybe that's the same genetic material, I don't know. But, okay, so they have kids, but how do they have grandkids without somebody there having incest? And I think you had an answer to that, right, from the Bible or not?
Well, there is something in Genesis where it talks about the other sons of God. So there's a hint that in addition to Adam and Eve, God may have created some other people.
Right. But that's got all sorts of theological problems, right? Yeah, so if you've created some other people, then, well, that Adam and Eve aren't awfully special, are they, right? And maybe if those other people, maybe Adam and Eve's lineage just died out from this incest, and maybe these other people are our descendants, right? Or our ancestors, and this whole original sin thing is just is already dead.
There's a particular line of thought that you can go to from that, and again, when I take and argue for a particular biblical interpretation, my purpose isn't saying that one is right over the other. I believe they're all wrong. The purpose is in showing that there are multiple interpretations, and there's no way for an outsider, or in my opinion, an insider, to know which interpretation is correct. And this thing with Adam and Eve and where did Cain's wife come from, and maybe God created other people as well. You can also take a look at that and say that in Genesis you have two words for God, one of them being plural, and that the descriptions of, Elohim being the gods, this is the tale of the Jews. And it could have been many gods creating life on earth in many places, and Adam and Eve was Yahweh Jehovah of the Elohim who created Adam and Eve in their lineage, and then there was some offbreeding with the ones created by the other Elohim. Oh. And that's why, in the first commandment is, I am the Lord thy God, thou shalt have no other gods before me. It doesn't say that, I'm the only God there is. It just says you're not supposed to have any other ones ahead of me. So there is a good, kind of alternate theological line with multiple gods and possibly multiple creations. Frankly, I think that it's all hooey.
It's all hooey. Yep.
Evolved just fine.
Well, another angle you could go is you can say, well, maybe because God says incest is bad later in the Bible, they get a grandfather clause.
Yeah.
Right.
Speaking of grandfather clause.
But the problem with that is they didn't get any sort of a special thing because before they ate from the tree of knowledge, they didn't know, right? They didn't get any exception for that, right? So anyway, of course, Adam and Eve never existed, and the whole original sin is BS and all that. There is an interesting concept in genetics called the mitochondrial Eve. Which is a very interesting idea, and that has to do with the fact that we have DNA in our bodies, in each cell of our body, in what are called the mitochondria, which are little organelles that help the metabolism of the cells. They end up just dividing down the line, right? And we inherit all our mitochondrial DNA from our mothers and our mother's mother and so on, all the way up. So the male line has nothing to do with this. This all goes all the way back up. And what they can do is they can look at the genetic variance among the mitochondrial DNA of a wide variety of people in the world today, and infer, based on the mutation rates, how long ago it was when this most common ancestor along the matriarchal line existed. Right. And this person is called mitochondrial Eve. It's a title, it's not a person, right? It's a title that changes over time as people die out and such. And they've determined that this is about 150,000 years ago.
Oh, that can't be true. The Bible says here it's only 6,000 to 10,000 years old, so 150,000 is obviously wrong. Damn that convincing science stuff.
Right. And then you can do the same thing for the Y chromosome, which is only inherited along the male line, right? Men pass it to their sons, and the women don't get it. And you can do the same thing going back in time. And the Y chromosomal Adam is the term, a title given to somebody who is potentially our most common ancestor of all humans, was between 60,000 and 90,000 years ago. So the two weren't even alive at the same time. So anyway, so that's pretty interesting.
Then it must be impossible.
It must be impossible.
Now,
science has to be wrong, right?
Because they've come up with these names of the mitochondrial Eve and Adam and stuff. I've actually seen creationists, obviously not well-versed ones, argue that just because they named them Adam and Eve proves that there was an Adam and Eve. And I'm like,
you've got a metaphor. It's a metaphor.
Yeah, there's a term all the viewers should get used to, and that's GCE, which stands for gross conceptual error, because I'm probably just going to go GCE when people call in and do stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So returning to this incest and inbreeding thing, we have other examples from the Bible. We have Aaron and Moses were the result of this is from Exodus 6:20, and Amram took Jochebed, his father's sister, to wife, and she bare him Aaron and Moses. So Aaron and Moses are the result of a little incest thing.
Yeah, Amram and his aunt.
Yeah, his aunt, right. Had ants in his pants. Yuck, yuck, yuck. Okay. Okay. Noah and company, right? We had 8 people, the whole world, all supposedly in this biblical story of 8 people repopulating the earth, right? And I think there's lots of other little problems with that, but that's sort of an example where you have a pinching of the gene pool, and if that were really true, that would actually show up in this mitochondrial Eve and Y chromosomal Adam. If that actually happened, you would see that this would be a far earlier occurrence than these numbers would be telling us. So Noah's example of inbreeding. We have Abraham and Sarah, who were half siblings. Abraham called her his sister when he was out whoring her around to make some money, but then they had Isaac together. Ishmael, who is supposedly the head of the Muslim line, the patriarch of the Muslim line, wasn't a result of inbreeding, but the Jewish one was, apparently, according to that. We have the story of Lot, where we have some sort of space alien in the form of an angel coming to visit. The mob comes to check out this space alien.
Right.
Lot decides to pitch his daughters out to them to appease the mob. They throw the daughters back, saying we're interested in the alien. And later everything is destroyed except Lot and his 2 daughters.
The story of Sodom and Gomorrah. For those who aren't familiar, essentially God hears that Sodom and Gomorrah are participating in all kinds of evil, wicked stuff, and he's gonna first of all, he needs to go down there and look and see if it's true, which is really baffling for an omniscient God. But then he decides that he's going to destroy the town, and there's an appeal made. No. Let's see if there isn't somebody salvageable.
Appeal, right.
Yeah, and so he's like, well, if I find, I think it's 3 righteous men or whatever, I'll save the town. And he doesn't, but he decides to save Lot and his family. Yet when you look at Lot and his family, Lot's there being visited by the space angel, the space aliens, who are portrayed as angels, messengers of God, to come down and find out who's righteous or whatever. And the crowd comes to take him. And Lot, the righteous man who's going to be saved from Sodom and Gomorrah, offers up his daughters. Hey, here's my young virgin daughters.
Right.
Why don't you go out, take them out in the street, do whatever you want with them. Just don't hurt this visitor. And I guess that's how you earn God's favor. If you're willing to, pimp out your own daughters rather than right. Give up an angel.
Or dispose of them, right?
Yeah. So it shouldn't be much of a surprise that, what happens later.
Right. So what happens later, which is often forgotten by Christians, I think, when they go to claim that this has something to do with homosexuality, is that Lot gets drunk and ends up having sex. It's not quite clear who's in charge with both of his daughters and both of his daughters.
The daughters were in charge.
The daughters were in charge.
They got him drunk, and one of them had sex with him one night, and it worked so well that the other one did it the next night.
Right. So he ended up with 2 children, grandchildren that way. And you can say, oh, well, this is just, drunken debauchery, and, being a man, I know that's not how the male anatomy works. If you're drunk enough not to notice somebody on top of you, you're not going to bear a child, okay? So it's a miracle. It's one of the few miracles, I'll say that. It's right in the Bible, it's a miracle. God endorsed it, he saved Lot. The real moral of this story, I think, is that children are disposable, and if you want to have incest with them, if you want to pitch them out and have them, be killed by would-be rapists, that's just fine.
The interesting thing about the story about Lot pimping his daughters out to try and save somebody is that same story occurs elsewhere in the Bible in a slightly different set of circumstances. They're almost identical, which is one of the reasons why most theologians will say none of this actually happened. These are little moral stories, and what you're looking at is one story and then it being retold again. In the second one, he offers a daughter and the
second. There's another version of this story.
Yeah, but it's not Lot; it's somebody else. The same thing happens.
Oh, okay.
He offers his daughter and some servant or whatever, or this guy's wife, I think. And the crowd actually goes for it, and they rape and ravage them right there in the streets. And then the guy who offered up his wife or whatever, I'd have to look it up. If you know and it's in your Bible and you believe it, let me know. Then he cuts her up into 12 pieces and sends her to the 12 tribes of Israel. After, I mean, there's just all kinds of absurdity.
Crazy stuff.
And then we give this book to kids, by the way, and encourage them to read it. Good stuff.
Yeah, so there's some prohibitions of incest in the Bible. There's a few things in Leviticus, but most Christians know that Leviticus is about Jewish law and for protecting the Jews and defining the Jews. There's a little bit in Deuteronomy 27:22. Cursed be he that lieth with his sister, the daughter of his father, or the daughter of his mother. Okay. But it has no prohibition against your own daughter. So maybe that's what we want to have here in our South Dakota abortion law. Is we want to allow incest with your daughters,
boyfriends, girlfriend. I don't know.
yeah. You can enumerate for quite a while, right? Yeah. But still.
Oh, several times it's mentioned specifically that one of the people that you're definitely not supposed to have sex with, even if it doesn't exclude everybody, is your father's sister. You're not supposed to have sex with your father's sister. And that's exactly who Aaron and Moses were the result of someone and his father's sister.
Right.
So,
go figure.
These are the righteous ones.
Right.
So that'll save them.
So is it what God says, or is it what God says today that's moral, or what God said yesterday was moral? Okay. So I'm going to shift gears here. Let's put up the number. We're a live call-in show. This is the 23rd of April. If you're listening to us on any other day, we're not live. We're going to start taking calls. I'm going to do another little vignette here, and then we'll take some calls, and then we'll come back, and I got a little bit more. So now I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about inbreeding in reality, right? I mean, these are Bible stories. They're all kind of fake, silly. Amusing. The more you think about them, the sillier they seem. We have one group that's fairly famous for inbreeding is the Amish, and they're in Pennsylvania and such. And the Amish have higher rates of inherited disease caused by bad recessive genes that are diluted in the general population, but remain captive in closed societies. That increases the odds that distant relatives that are each carriers of rare disorder will marry and produce afflicted children. Okay, so we have this pinching that we talked about that must have occurred if the Noah story was right, that we have a very small gene pool, and what you end up happening is these recessive genes that would normally be bred out of a population become more dominant. And this is why we worry about things like endangered species, right? Because if we have this a species reduced terribly in numbers, the individuals might be fit, but their descendants won't be, right? Because they'll inherit these recessive genes and they won't be as fit. And so the effect of this reduction in population actually might take generations for it to play out in the health of the descendants. So that's exactly what we see here in the Amish. They have a fairly closed society. They've been closed for about 200 years or so. And they're closed mostly to retain their culture. I mean, that's the real reason why they're doing it. But as a result of that, they've got this inbreeding problem. Now, to the credit of the Amish, and I really admire them for doing this, is they have opened their community up to researchers, and the researchers have opened a clinic there that are taking care of these children who have these rare genetic disorders, and they're allowing people to take lots and lots of blood from them. They have, I think, 600 people, Amish people, helping out with this undertaking, and apparently researchers are finding all sorts of interesting genes and things from this population, because effectively they've created a situation that ethically it wouldn't be normal to create, right? They've created a situation where they can study inbreeding, and what they apparently are finding new genes weekly, and the clinic has played a role in numerous significant discoveries by expert gene hunters, from diabetics breakthroughs to unlocking some of the mysteries behind sudden infant death syndrome. So, if there's a silver lining here, I think that's it. So, so that's the Amish. A far more kind of disturbing area is the Mormons. Now, Mormons are famous for polygamy and plural marriages, and this ends up causing inbreeding because for a number of reasons. One is when you have a sort of male who's special and such, and he creates lots of different children through maybe multiple wives, then you end up with this next generation more or less all being related to each other. Yeah. And there's nobody else who isn't related, right? So,
right.
So these special males, these alpha males or whatever, end up having a disproportionate number of their genes in the pool.
Yeah, at an initial look, you might think that polygamy would be the farthest thing from inbreeding. You're spreading it out, but the problem is that there's all the breeding occurs within a small population or a relatively small population. So you're kind of distributing lengthwise instead of depth.
Right.
So everybody ends up related to everybody shortly, which I guess makes sorting out wills easier.
No, actually it doesn't, because it turns out that the Mormon Church in Utah in general has, in coming into the Union, has sort of said, well, officially we don't allow this sort of thing, but it still goes on. So what they've done is they've hidden it, right? So it may be that you're not even aware of your parentage. In fact, I read here that a lot of the mothers don't tell the children who their father is purposefully. Right, so a lot of kids in the same household think that they're not related to each other. Right, and they tell these poor kids that, oh, your daddy was a truck driver who's going to come back. Things like that, and it gets far worse than that. There's a book called God's Brothel: The Extortion of Sex for Slavation in Contemporary Mormon and Christian Fundamentalist Polygamy, and the Stories of 18 Women Who Escaped, by Andrea Moore Emmett. And I have a book review here. The history of this is polygamy comes out of the vision of Joseph Smith, founding prophet of the Mormon Church, who revealed that polygamy was the only way to achieve eternal salvation, and furthermore that a man had to have at least 3 wives for this to be accomplished.
I think that Joseph Smith, his main argument for polygamy was the only way that he could have sex with as many women as he wanted to. Yeah. It's that simple. How can you be so stupid?
The whole culture surrounding
I'm looking at the stones are telling me that I get to have sex with lots of women.
Stones in his hat or whatever, right? So these people have run with this thing, right? In contrast, the only way for a woman to enter heaven was to be escorted by her husband. Thus, the woman was dependent on the goodwill of the husband, and obedience was assured. So that's how it comes from. They're required by doctrine to have 1 child per year without the benefit of prenatal care. Women exist in a chronic state of pregnancy. Their wives devoted to child rearing. In addition, poverty is considered a blessing to make them more perfect and refine their souls, but despite the fact that some polygamous organizations are quite wealthy. There's a group called the Kingston Group, which is a very famous polygamous group, estimated around whose worth is estimated around 200 million. Fathers and sons may be married to the same woman. Fathers may also marry their own daughters, and brothers may marry their own sisters. Lots of inbreeding. Let's see. The social system is kept in place through inbreeding, indoctrination, and ignorance. Rarely are young women allowed to continue their education past the age of 14. They may be given in marriage to as young as 9, and often to men twice or 3 times their age. Children are used as barter. If a man wants to marry the young daughter of his friend, he may give his own daughter in exchange, while women are allowed. Some say in the matter the choice is questionable. If people are not educated, how can they make these choices? So not surprisingly, we have a lot of genetic diseases running rampant in these groups. Now, not all Mormons are doing this. This is often in these sort of closed Mormon communities. We have all sorts of diseases that show up: nephritis, spina bifida, asthma, clubfoot, albinoism, multiple sclerosis, stability, the bearing of only one sex. One woman said, very often babies are born as blobs of protoplasm. Isn't that pleasant?
Not particularly.
Not particularly. Okay, so we have two examples of communities when they huddle themselves off and they do all this stuff and have this incestuous thing that it ends up being a bad thing from a genetic standpoint. So we have religion sort of causing bad things through genetics. If you want to ever learn anything about genetics, that's actually not a bad place to start. You can go and look at all the diseases that can be caused by bad genes. So let's stop and take a few calls, and then I got a little bit more.
As a reminder, before we start taking calls, after the show, we've been going to dinner at Threadgill's on Riverside. Normally get there between 6:30 and 6:45. Any atheists or atheist-friendly people, welcome to join us. And having said that, we'll go on and move on to callers. Is it Tamara or Tamara?
Tamara.
Hey, Tamara.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Pretty good.
I don't know if you guys have ever talked about this, but I started doing some research on some of the experts. Have you noticed that National Geographic has been running more and more stories on the Bible and biblical history and science in the Bible, and though it
could just be that they're trying to get audiences because they know that if they put on a show or do articles and things, that they'll get an audience that's very interested in that sort of thing.
Are you talking about the TV show or the?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it tends to come across balanced, but in doing research on some of their experts, they all tend to be creationist.
Right.
And I'm wondering if someone had told me, but I haven't been able to verify it, that somebody from the Bush administration or a friend of George Bush had taken over programming, and that was why we were seeing so many religious-backed shows coming up over and over again.
I think the thing you're referencing isn't the National Geographic's channel. I think you're talking about NPR and PBS.
Yes.
No. This is National Geographic.
That may very well be true. You know, the media is not as unbiased as we might hope it would be, right? The media is owned by, most of the media is owned by a very small number of corporations, and they are very much corporate interests, and they're not necessarily so interested in educating. They're interested in necessarily advancing their own causes.
Yeah, I loved when I got, like, the extended cable packages when they first started coming out. I love the fact that they had, like the Learning Channel, the Science Channel, Discovery Channel, and things like that. But unfortunately, we live in a world where market share rules, and that means that those channels, which do provide some good content and good science information and everything else, they're also going to have to pander in order to get an audience, which means you're going to see shows about psychics and ghost hunters and, Jesus stories and creationist stuff.
Well, it's worse than that. Yes, there is that, right? There is the whole fact that media is a business, right? And public access shows are like some of the few out there that aren't, involved in making a profit, right? So none of us make any money doing this. We're all volunteers. But that's one influence. The other influence is yes, you do have conservative groups or other groups that are filtering what is said, right? We had this example of the guy who was coming in and filtering of the NASA website, right, and trying to doctor the science that was said there, right, because he didn't want the Big Bang to be talked about or something.
You also have organizations like the Templeton Foundation, or Templeton Group, I can't remember exactly what they're called, which provides cash awards for people who produce television and movies and television programs that specifically push a moral Christian religious message, etc. Which, if there's a cash prize out there, all of a sudden, guess what? I might be doing a biopic on Jesus, even if I don't care about it.
Right.
Right.
There's a lot of money in there.
Yeah, I understand all that, but it seems that of lately, I mean, there was one time National Geographic, because the channel is associated with the magazine.
Right.
They had a certain standard, and that seems to have slipped to some degree.
I agree.
So I just wanted to see if you guys knew anything about that.
Not that particular one, but I'm not terribly surprised by what you say. And yes, I have noticed, at least on the television programming, they do have a lot more biblical stuff, and a lot of it's kind of questionable research that goes behind it.
Yeah, I'll take a look.
That's all I wanted to say.
Thanks.
Y'all have a nice day.
Okay.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, I'll take a look around on the internet, see what I can find out. I think one of the things is that I'm always cautious about is that, you know, what you get on television is going to be a mixed bag anyway, but what you happen to see on a particular channel versus the entirety of the programming on a channel,
that's tough.
It may be, plus we're all around Easter time.
And it's perfectly fine to have those viewpoints. I think what I'd really like to see is shows say, hey, you know, this is our bias, or this is where we're coming from, right? This is disclosure of who's funding us and these sorts of things, and that's fine. When a reporter does an article and says, hey, I'm involved with the people I'm writing about, you know, that's perfectly honest and that's reasonable. At least it tips off the reader that the author has admitted a potential conflict of interest, and you can decide whether or not you can make a more informed decision based on what you're reading.
I'm not even as concerned that they tell me what their bias or position is ahead of time, because, you know, obviously you can, without doing that, create a story which is obviously biased one direction. What bothers me is when they pretend to look at both sides of an issue and they put up these straw man paper cutting, you know, I'm the skeptic face, and, you know, they spout some position which is just
nuts, right?
It's not the best argument. It's probably one of the worst arguments, and they get pushed around. You know, they softball it.
Yeah.
So, I think.
Yeah, and giving you the illusion that they're playing both sides.
Sure.
Or another thing that is going on very often is there isn't two sides to certain issues, but they pretend there is, right? Like this whole intelligent design thing is, oh, let's play fair, let's hear both sides of the story, and one side has no research and no scientific evidence and all this stuff, and they're supposedly trying to give equal footing, and the reporters just love this, right? Because they say, oh, well, we're giving both sides of the story, so we must be doing our job.
Yeah. Got news for you. There aren't two sides to the story. Evolution is an observable fact. Speciation is an observable fact. The theory is the best explanation for it, and just because you happen to think God did it, sorry, that's not the other side. That's your
Come up with some
particular
evidence
opinion.
for that if you really believe that.
Yeah. Let's go on to Phil.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hi. Pretty good. How you doing, Phil?
Just fine. Did y'all have a chance to read the Statesman today?
I did.
No.
Did you read the section in World and Nation about the two co-eds up in Georgia?
Yeah, I have it here in front of me, it turns out.
What is up with those two?
What is up with that? So for the folks in our audience who may not have heard of it, there are some conservative Christian college students who are suing, turns out, Georgia Tech?
Well, there's two lawsuits. Apparently they're suing Georgia Institute of Technology, as well as there's a federal case that wants to do away with all, I guess, nationwide speech against gays and lesbians, basically.
Right. They're saying that they're being persecuted, or they're being their First Amendment rights are being hindered by these bans on these sorts of statements that they might make against gays.
Yeah. Presumably, they want to go out on the quad with a bullhorn and tell homosexuals and lesbians about how they're going to hell.
Yeah.
So it kind of begs the question: what would they do with me if I went out on their quad and told Christians what a bunch of idiots they were? You know, how would they like that?
Yeah.
Right. And in addition to this particular court case in Georgia, there's also a couple of high school students, a brother, sister, and a friend of theirs, who have a very similar lawsuit in Philadelphia.
You got to wonder sometimes these young people like this, 20 and maybe 22 years old, if these various legal organizations, the Christian Legal Society, Focus on the Family, and
Alliance Defense Fund,
if they put these people up to this,
oh yeah,
you know, this is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I just want to see. I'm sure you probably were all. I'm pretty.
There's a big machine behind that. There's no doubt about it.
This is just ridiculous. I'm gonna let you move on to another caller.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Phil.
Well,
the Alliance.
We can talk about that a little bit.
The Alliance Defense Fund has a $20 million operating budget. They're the ones that are handling the Philadelphia case. They have ties to Focus on the Family and the
Campus Crusade for Christ is mentioned.
Yeah, all of those different organizations. It's all one big kind of inbred melting pot. Where they're just, let's just get a couple cases, because the thing to me is, if you're sitting around beating somebody up on top of the head and I stop you, I'm not violating your rights, because you don't have the right to beat somebody on top of the head. So when you start screaming persecution because you're not allowed to do whatever the hell you want to do, that's just asinine. And now there may be some dispute with regard to like a college campus and free speech and everything else, but in a public high school, we don't afford all rights to minors, and we have specific rules in place to promote a learning environment that would allow kids to learn and not be persecuted. And high school is traumatic enough on people without a couple of morons running around talking about how you're evil and you're sinning and you're going to hell. You know, you don't need people telling that, you know, shouting that in the hallways or interrupting classes. And there was this other issue with regard to intelligent design and evolution, where high school students are interrupting classes to question their professors about evolutionary things.
Basically, just intentionally disrupting the learning environment. For
if I'd have done stuff like that in school, that kind of disruptive influence, and I had fundamentalist Christian parents, I'd have been sent down to the principal. My parents would have been called. I'd have gotten the beating of my life, and you know, because you're sent there to learn, and you're sent. You know, there are rules you have to follow. This is disgusting that people are actively suing for the right to be intolerant and what borders on assault in some cases. You know. Well,
yeah. I mean, these folks, I think, have a First Amendment right to talk about what they want to talk about. Now, if they're going across the line and you know, organizing against certain people, or if they're telling lies or whatever, which very often it is, then that's not allowed.
Well, the First Amendment right stops as soon as they're on. As soon as they're in a situation where there are rules which specifically curtail it. You don't have the right to say whatever you want anywhere. If you come onto my particular, if I have an internet forum and you start saying stuff and I edit your posts and lock you out, yeah, is that censorship? Sure, but who says censorship is always wrong? I have the right to make the rules in my particular forum.
Well, universities certainly have the right, because they have to create they're a business. They have to create a learning environment that's going to work for everybody, right? And you know, these folks are trying to take advantage of the captive audience that exists in this universities.
Yeah, one of the things about rights is my rights end where yours begin. And in an environment where we're trying to get people to get along, and specifically in a school environment where we're not only trying to get people to cooperate and coexist, but to not hinder their ability to learn or work if you're doing it in the workplace, etc. Yeah, your rights do kind of end there. There's nothing that, you know, I'm a huge proponent of free speech, and I am, you know, vehemently against censorship when we're talking about in the right format. When we're talking about, I should have the right to say what I want to say, and I should be able to do so in public as well. But there are exceptions in situations like this where the act of speech, you know, for instance, yelling fire in a crowded theater, you know, causes a disruption and or harm to other people. So.
Right. And one more thing needs to be said, I think, on this is you know, Christians aren't being persecuted, right? This is an example of people claiming, oh, we're being persecuted because we can't, you know, beat up on this group, and that's just not the case.
Hey, if you're an 80% majority and you're being persecuted, you're a moron.
Yeah, so
it's not persecution.
Our own Tracy Harris had a lovely cartoon on our website about that. If you go look at Atheist Eve on our website, it talks about that.
And that reminds me of another quick thing, because so often they would like to pimp atheists in secular society as being immoral and responsible for the ills of society. Guess what? If you're 80% of the United States, people within that 80% are responsible for those problems that you want to pin off on secular people as well. I guarantee you that if you like object to abortion or porn and other things, that's not all being done by secular America. There are fine Christian folks who sit next to you in that pew who are just as guilty as anybody else.
Yep.
All right, let's go on to Kevin.
Yeah.
You there, Kevin?
I'm here.
How you doing?
Hey guys, great show.
Thanks.
I'm a first-time caller.
Good.
Y'all were talking about the Amish earlier. I was wondering if y'all are familiar with a study done by the University of Michigan back in 2003 about the group. It's actually, I told your producer it was in Lansing. I think it's in Midland, Michigan. It's a small community. It's the Yoders.
Okay.
Yoders?
They did a study on it, and they found that the due to the inbreeding, it was they found a direct correlation with the inbreeding to men's pattern baldness. I'll hang up and listen, guys.
Thanks.
I don't know if that was a crank or not, but because I got that going, but I don't think I had anything to do with Michigan.
I'm pretty sure. I don't think I'm inbred any more than anybody else.
Okay.
Maybe what you see as a pattern isn't really a pattern, but that's something we can discuss on another show too.
Okay.
You want to go on or go to more calls?
Oh yeah, I'll go on.
Okay.
So we've talked about this whole incest and inbreeding thing, and I claim that there is a connection here between that and religion, and here's why. Here's why. If you have a small religion that's just getting started, a small sect or whatever, then this little sect sort of has this problem of keeping its integrity, right? If it's out diluted too much in general society, it'll be hit by other influences and stuff, and it'll be all diluted out. And so, in order to keep this thing alive and keep it going as a religion, you can think of the religion as a living thing, if you will. In order for that to keep going, you have to bring in people. You have to create people or bring in people that believe in that religion. Okay, there's two ways to do this. One is what's called horizontal transmission, where you go and you would go recruit people. You're the Hare Krishnas. You go to the airports and you find people that are vulnerable and stressed out, and you talk them into joining your group, and maybe when they come by, you give them sugar and you influence them and you pull them in and you bring them in as part of your religion, and eventually they have to give up all ties to the outside world, right? So you end up pulling in people, but you want to prevent them from leaving, right? So that's what these small religions tend to do. Witnessing, indoctrination of adults is hard. It's easier when they're emotionally vulnerable, but if people are leaving, then you're not holding on to your people. That's a problem. Much easier is vertical transmission to the children, right? Children are a captive audience. They're impressionable. They tend to obey their parents. They can be indoctrinated in a religion very easily, and why not create children? Why not have a religion that causes the creation of children, right? And because that helps the religion continue on. So if your goal is to maximize believers, you're going to end up with this sort of closed communities that are shielded from the outside, both genetically and mimetically, and as far as the culture. And there's going to be this sort of incest, both at the cultural level to keep this religion intact, and at a genetic level that will keep those genes intact. And you're going to end up with this inbreeding situation. And inbreeding is actually okay from a religious standpoint, in the sense that if the children come out dumb or impaired or whatever, as long as they believe that, as far as the religion's concerned, that's fine. The goal for the religion is not necessarily to make better humans, is to perpetuate the religion. So this is a case where you have the memes at odds with the genes, or the culture at odds with the humanity, and you can say that this is just what cults do, but I claim that big religions do this too. And the big religions, the only major difference, as far as I'm concerned, between cults and big religions is that the bigger religions have become self-sustaining, in the sense that they can tolerate people leaving and new people coming in. And they do have a larger gene pool, so they don't have this incestuous problem, incest and inbreeding problem. But I think that this is part and parcel of smaller religious groups that are trying to keep alive. And we see this in the Amish and the Mormon. Now, where we don't see it is in things like the Shakers. The Shakers were a little small religious group, and let me see if I can find my thing here. They're an interesting example because they died out, and they died out because they believed in celibacy. So they lacked this perpetuate the genes thing, and they died out. And supposedly there are a few Shakers left, but they were trying to repopulate just from pulling in from.
They obviously weren't very good Shakers. They're descended from those backslidden Shakers who decided to have a little sex.
So that's all I had for today, and that's why there is this connection between religion and inbreeding. Anyway, so let's take some more callers. And
Tim said that there's 6 left in Kansas.
Six inbreeders left, or 6 what?
I think they're on the school board too.
Shakers?
Shakers.
Oh, okay.
6 inbred Shakers remain in Kansas and are now on the school board. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
We got Wes. How you doing?
Hey, all right. How's it going?
Pretty good.
Well, I watch the show from time to time, and there's people that call in and they seem to be sort of confused or ask questions like, "You guys, they're like, you're a non-belief system. Why would you waste the time to have a show about what you don't believe in?" And then so, in the course of trying to explain yourselves, and like today's topic, it seems like, to a lot of people that you bring up this inbreeding as sort of a put down on the religious types to demonstrate how they're wrong in their belief systems.
Well, I've come up with examples where the religious belief leads to obviously bad things.
Right, and so if organized religion leads to a lot of really bad things, to stay focused on how this affects us in a contemporary political sense, in that these people are making decisions that affect all of our lives on a practical level every day. And if you bring the discussion around to that point and stay on that point,
yeah, we do hit those topics, and maybe your criticism is that we don't hit them enough.
Well, I'm just I understand the confusion of the types of people that that dial in maybe the first time they see the show, and they think, well, what's the point? Why would you have a show to possibly, like, the only purpose is to discourage people from believing what they believe in? Where that's a little bit different than if you say these belief systems actually cause real damage and problems for other people.
Yeah. That's if you watch a lot of shows I do try to focus on that message quite a bit. This topic was a little bit unusual, I'll grant you, but I've done whole shows. Most of my shows are sort of on that theme of belief is harmful.
Well, would you agree that most of these large organized religions are actually political power structures?
Yes, I think,
and that's their main function.
Yeah, and I think we're going to tax the crap out of them.
Yeah, exactly, and that's that's kind of
my own personal politics.
I just like to hear you guys talk more about those kind of things, like let's tax these
there's
guys,
a limit. There's a limit to what we can speak about with regard to politics, because it's atheism itself is just lack of belief in a God, and that's it. And within even within the ACA, there are people with beliefs and political positions that vary. There are Democrats, there are Republicans, there are Libertarians. We have some people who are pro-life.
Yeah, but so there's nobody in our group that thinks that the religious takeover of the Republican Party is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
There's absolutely no one.
and I don't know. Some people may be in favor of taxing religious groups, and some people may not. But regardless, it is a topic we can discuss because we've discussed abortion here before as well. And as long as we're clear up front that we're not speaking on behalf of every atheist or even every ACA member, we can tackle some of those issues. And I'd like to see us hit a few more of those.
Yeah, and you mentioned the right, the Christian right, and how they relate to the Republican politics. There again, I don't believe this is about propagating their belief, their religious beliefs. It's pure political power to exercise other people's behavior along the lines that that they want to see you behave.
Yeah, I think in a lot of it's an excuse. They're using their religion as an excuse to have as much control as they can, and it doesn't even to some of these people. I don't think it matters. how much power they already have or anything else. It's just I have to have more power, and I have to. I don't know. There's you hear like conspiracy theorists talking about the Illuminati and these ultra secret handful of men sitting around basically pulling the puppet strings and toying with the lives of everybody on the planet as some kind of global conspiracy. And I don't generally buy into those types of things, but there are situations that we see within modern, normal politics and day-to-day operations, which you can understand how somebody could, connect the dots along those lines.
Well, these people seem to be pretty good at hiding things right out in the open. And if you can speak a little more often every once in a while on the assumptions people have that aren't really true. For example, we constantly hear that 85% of the people in this country are Christians, yet I don't see any traffic jams out there on Sunday morning.
Yeah, well, see, the last numbers I got from like adherence.org is 78%. But it comes down to polls and information like that. It's how you phrase the question. Something like 90% of people will claim to believe in God if you phrase the question in the correct way. So we don't have good information. How many people are intellectual, rational atheists, and how many people are just, I don't happen to believe in God, and I don't really care about the question, and it doesn't concern me. But yeah, the numbers are screwy.
Yeah.
Well, I think you guys are doing a good job. Keep up the good work, and I'd like to see some more articles. I know in times in the past you used to pull articles up from various magazines and the press about that there are examples of how this is not a Christian nation and so forth. Mm-hmm. Maybe a little a little balance.
Yeah. From
what we get, the disinformation we get off the rest of the media.
Yep.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot for calling, Wes. We invite you and any other atheist-friendly people to join us at Threadgills after the show. We'll be down there. It's on Riverside. The show's over at 6 o'clock. We get there between 6:30 and 6:45. Any atheist-friendly people are welcome to join us. Also, you can visit the website. There's a feedback form, and you can email tv@atheist-community.org if you have other suggestions on other topics that we can talk about.
Yeah, we appreciate feedback. Yeah. Even constructive criticism is very welcome.
Yeah, you get the questions like, why do you do this show? And obviously, when you have atheism is simply the lack of belief in God, obviously we couldn't talk about just atheism. It'd be the show would be over in about 2 seconds. The reason it's called the Atheist Experience, and the reason we cover so many topics, is to give, in a way, more of a rationalist viewpoint in some cases. Mm-hmm. But nobody's saying that religion is all bad, but the claim that religion leads to good and religion is all good, and look at this charitable, you're looking at the good points and ignoring the bad points, right, and spinning a picture that is not the true picture. Not only are there tangible effects with religious causing harm, and you've talked about before how the religious mindset has prevented proper contraception, and which leads to the spread of disease and unwanted pregnancies, etc. We've talked about the abstinence-only education policies that exist in places like Lubbock, Texas, those types of things. One of my big pet peeves is education. And I think that I have a bumper sticker on my car which says fundamentalism stops a thinking mind. And I think that is absolutely one of the most harmful effects of religion, because you're placing your mind purposely in a position of cognitive dissonance where you're accepting contradictory propositions. You have one set of rules for the supernatural, fantasy, spiritual, all this is in a little box over here and it's got its own set of rules, when the rest of your life and all of your other decisions, you try and go about rationally. You don't thumb your nose at science when you're on your computer sending an email to somebody, when you're on the phone or driving your car or every other thing you do, because almost everything in our lives involves technology now. You don't all of a sudden question science and assume that you know more, or that there's some alternate explanation like God did it. So why is that okay for this little compartmentalization process? And I think that having and encouraging people to have a mindset like that causes problems. Bad decision making.
Amen. And how can you have a moral system that's based on contradictions?
Yeah.
You can't do it. Before you go on, one more thing for our last caller is next time I'm on, which is in 4 weeks, if you can remember that far in advance, we're going to be talking about the pro-life movement and all of the things that they say that just don't add up, that don't make sense. We're going to look at the movement itself, not the abortion question, but some of the arguments that they use, and look at whether or not any of that makes sense. And there's a lot of, things that just don't add up there. And so we're going to bring a lot of those out. Tracy Harris, our sometimes co-host and guest, will be there with us. So all three of us will be on.
Yeah, so for those of you who've been emailing about when you're going to see Tracy next, that'll be it. 4 weeks from today.
4 weeks from today,
You'll
if
see
not
her
sooner.
for sure.
If not sooner.
If not sooner. You never know. We got Mike.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
I can hear you.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
You're really about criticizing organized religion, aren't you?
That's one of the things that happens, yeah.
Well, the people who do, like, behave in the way that, the ones who are attacking gays and any kind of persons, any kind of group of people, they're not Christians.
Okay, how do you know?
Because they violate the second law, fundamental law of Christianity.
Which is?
To love your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah, but aren't you loving them more by caring about their eternal soul and making sure that you're not loving them more?
No, that's up to them.
You're not loving them more by caring about their eternal soul more than their life on this planet?
Right. Doesn't the first law preclude that?
No,
Doesn't
the first law is to love God with all your mind and your heart. The second law is to love.
But if God tells you to do certain things, then you better pay attention to that,
God,
right?
Well, God doesn't tell you to do that.
So those people who claim to hear from God, they're not true Christians either?
I don't know if they're Christians or not. It's not up to me to decide whether they're Christians or not.
Well, you just decided somebody else wasn't a Christian.
How did I do that?
You just told me when you first called in that those people weren't true Christians.
That is not behaving in a Christian way.
Okay.
Is that loving other people by damning them to hell?
The truth
no one should ever damn anyone to hell, because God is the only one who knows who is going to heaven or hell.
So you say. You called in right off the bat.
So the Bible says. And so
okay, and so what? So your Bible says it. What makes you think the Bible's correct?
Well, I happen to believe that it is.
Okay, that's your belief.
That's my right to believe that.
And now
it's your right to be an atheist if you so desire.
I just put you on hold. I didn't hang up. I wanted to do that for a reason, because you're demonstrating something that we see all the time. You have your own opinion that the Bible is valid, and you have your own opinions about what the Bible actually says and what determines a true Christian. And based on that, you're making a determination about who is and isn't a true Christian. And yet your position on all of those is different from somebody else's. So we can have 50 different people saying 50 different things about who is or isn't a true Christian. And the truth of the matter is that when you look at it globally...
And they're all different.
They're all different.
They're not the same. So how does someone like me from the outside tell who's the true Christian and not?
Why would you need to do that?
Because if I'm gonna criticize people based on their beliefs, then I'd really like to know.
Don't you think it's a higher act of morality not to judge other people?
No, I think that letting horrible things happen in the world is a bad thing.
Go ahead, Don.
I was going to say, I think that letting horrible things happen in the world is a bad thing.
Yeah, I don't think judging is bad. I think we make judgments all the time about everything and everybody, and to claim that all of a sudden we shouldn't judge is absurd.
But you just criticized the people who are making fun of the gay people, that they're doing something wrong, and you presented that as evidence of the irrationality of Christianity.
Yes, because... Yes, I did, because I just told you it's okay for me to judge. I find it perfectly acceptable for me to make judgments about the actions and
we support their right to judge us.
And that's fine. You're the one who's saying thou shalt not judge. I didn't say that, so you can't call me.
No, I'm not saying they shouldn't judge.
What did you say then? Didn't you say that a minute ago?
I thought that you did.
Well, then why do we even need to have any kind of a conversation with? Because you're on there.
We don't need to have any kind of a conversation at all.
Well,
there's a problem when we're trying to, if people call in and say, oh, that such and such isn't a true Christian, Give me a good definition of what a true Christian is and demonstrate that your definition is actually correct. Otherwise, you're just stating your opinion. And your opinion is going to be different, just like everybody else's.
Yeah, everybody likes to pick and choose from the Bible.
You know, I just... I have limited patience for people who are just going to repeat the same thing over and over again. If you want to have an actual discussion, we can have a discussion. If you want to talk about points, we can do that.
And you know, we try to base our statements on evidence and facts and things, and we invite people to call and say, hey, why do you believe that? What is the evidence behind what you believe? And you know, one of the things that we were criticizing on this conservative Christians fight intolerance fight tolerance is that these people are claiming to be persecuted when they're not, and those sorts of things. And these are some of the things I object to.
Yeah, you know, as a big tip, and I realize I'm pretty much speaking for myself, but you know, hey, I am the host of the show. If your entire argument boils down to the Bible is true, I accept that on faith, and nothing you say can change my mind, don't bother calling. I can't argue against that position, and you're perfectly within your rights to hold that position. I just don't think that it's a reasonably sound position. We can't get anywhere in any discussion if you're going to hold to absolutes like that and just, you know, rigidly refuse to change your mind or listen to reason.
The devil wrote the Bible, right?
Well, you know. I don't know. I frankly,
we don't know who.
Frankly, you know, while you know, the previous caller could call in and say what is and isn't a true Christian, I, as a former Christian, would say you're not a true Christian because the first thing you did was call in and say who wasn't a true Christian. Whoops, I just did it too. Oh my, I'm not a true Christian. Yeah, it's because I'm an atheist.
Okay.
Are we good now? Have fun.
Let's take another caller.
Let's go on to Wanda. How you doing?
Again.
Hey.
My hand has gone to sleep this time.
Oh,
holding the phone to your
I'm
ear.
half drunk, but I still remember a few hours ago you got a call about the kids that are suing about you know, they're not allowed to complain about.
Right.
Let me see. But anyway, I read that. I had read that, and also on front of the insight section, there's a whole page almost about the warming signs, you know, and I read all of it.
The warming signs of what, ma'am?
Of the earth.
Oh, the global warming?
Yeah, the warming signs. UT biologist sees a future with no penguins, no polar bears. One big moral question: do we care enough to save what's left? But the point of the whole thing, and it's hardly ever mentioned, is there's too damn many people.
Yep,
that's a problem.
And so,
yeah, there's you know, one of the big humanist positions is that we have.
I admire about gay people. They don't contribute to overpopulation.
That's right. They're helping.
So we need more.
They're making the world beautiful, right? Through florism and hairstylists.
And that protective gay shield that they put over the French Quarter when Katrina hit, so that the gay areas would be safe.
So, and they're a heck of a lot of fun to be around.
Oh yeah, listen, I worked with gay people for years in Miami. They came from Los Angeles and started. They said they were going to promote the word gay instead of queers or homosexuals, and they brought it from Los Angeles. And now, see, that was 50 years ago. I'm getting old, aren't I? But anyway, and now everybody knows what gay means.
Yep.
You know, it used to be like, you remember the movie The Gay Divorcee?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I need another drink, so I'll let you go.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks for calling. We appreciate hearing from you.
And I'd invite you down, but I don't want you to drive.
That's right. Don't drink and drive.
We got, hey, Joe.
Hey.
Joe Zamecki.
Don and Matt.
Hey, how's it going?
Darwin bless your last caller. I have two quick things. First of all, you're talking about Andrea Moore Emmett, who gave a great talk at the American Atheist Convention. I was there.
Oh, okay. I unwittingly chose something from an author who happened to be at the American Atheist Convention, huh? I didn't realize that.
Well, that's okay. It's a perfect
opportunity to talk about that. Very good.
Yes, and she went over several of the problems that are caused by certain polygamist cult groups, breakaway groups, and
excellent.
There was one I think that you may have not mentioned that was very important, and one caller suggested, what's the harm of religion? How come you have to get on TV and bash it? Why do atheism is by definition so little? How come you go on TV and just hawk on religion? Well, there's one reason why, and that is financial, of course. That's very important for us to talk about because religion does get away with a whole lot of financial misgivings, so to speak, and then one of them was these polygamous cults. They try to be fruitful and multiply, but they also get on all the government social aid they can, purposefully. And they still don't feed their children very well. And there have been TV shows that outline this, but Andrea Moore Emmett made a very good demonstration through the evidence of what has been found by the authorities. That is, a lot of these families are undernourished, while at the same time taking all kinds of welfare, food stamps, WIC, everything they possibly can, but it doesn't go to the kids. It goes to the church sometimes. So this was one area and one reason why we do need to talk about this, and yes, it is a valid subject for us free-thinking taxpayers. And secondly, I wanted to say that we're going to have a picket on May 4th of the National Day of Prayer. That's Thursday, I know a weekday, but every year we now try to do that since last year. And
yeah, I meant to mention it already, but something about, I'm going to actually be out of town over that entire 4 days, so because of that, it just doesn't enter my mind because I won't be able to be there.
Smack,
well.
smack. This is a good time for you to chat about it, Joe. Go ahead and tell us about it.
Oh, well, last year we started this tradition we're trying to do, and now that simply is where we go and hold a peaceful demonstration there on the sidewalk at 11th Street and Congress Avenue when the National Day of Prayer event is taking place. And this year it's going to be taking place inside the Capitol building itself and the rotunda. And that's a bit more unfortunate because obviously it's more strategic where the offices are, and they don't have to rely on lawmakers coming out of the building in order for them to get the message.
Right.
And as we may remember from last year when we were picketing, having a great time, by the way, we were on the sidewalk a long distance away, but we could still hear their music, and a lot of passersby came to us and gave us the thumbs up and whispered in our ears saying, I really don't like their music, it's terrible, but thank you for holding up picket sign against that. But otherwise, though, we're not trying to bash religion or take away anybody's right to pray.
So the ACA is going to be protesting the separation of church and state issue, right? The fact that we have an endorsement of religion, an establishment of religion there within the rotunda of the state capitol, which is illegal according to our First Amendment of our Constitution. So that's the reason why we're doing this event.
Yeah,
right.
And we said before, I discussed this last week, and we talked about it even last year, you have the right to pray. And guess what? You also have the right to pray in public. Like, you could go up to the Capitol anytime you want with your buddies and pray. The objection is to the official government declaration and providing, favoritism and special treatment to religion.
Right. There's always some government involvement, and especially having it at the Capitol grounds there, for one thing, but they also get certain civic leaders, they're called on the National Day of Prayer website, civic leaders, instead of calling them government officials.
Yeah.
And so it's all about semantics in that respect, but usually you can rely on seeing at least one or two legislators, and perhaps even the governor. But it's a Bible Belt state, and this is what we come to expect.
That's part of his deal, right.
So anyway, in a peaceful, friendly way, we'd like to go and point that out in public, and just with some signs and some flyers and stop by.
And it's not just us. We invite anybody who cares about separation of church and state, including minority religions and even majority religions, to come down and join us. Anybody who thinks that this is a bad thing and that our Constitution should be upheld, come join us and protest this event.
Wow.
And if there are Christian viewers who are planning to go down to the rotunda and pray, I'd advise you all to pray that we don't come back next year, and we'll see what happens.
It was so fun. Even if they stopped doing it, I don't even know if we would want to stop. But that's how fun a picket can be, when it's friendly and lighthearted and peaceful. Anyway, thanks a lot for talking about that. And
okay, I'm glad you brought that up, Joe. That's great. That's great.
Thanks.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, y'all have a good day.
All right, bye-bye.
Yeah, I had fun last year. It was actually the first time I think I'd ever actually picketed anything.
Joe's a picket kind of guy too. He really gets into that.
Yeah, and I'm usually not. And actually, it was a while when I first heard we were going to do the picket last year. I wasn't sure that I was actually against it because I hadn't really looked into what the problem was. Because, like I said, you should have every right to go and pray. It's the government endorsement of this that's the problem.
Yes,
it's like
that's right.
In 1983, when Congress convinced Reagan to declare 1983 the year of the Bible. as an official proclamation. That's a problem.
That's an endorsement of religion.
You know, one of the things that you hear
establishment of religion.
Well, it doesn't really hurt anything. You know, it's not a problem, but it does, because you're setting up precedent for one thing. You're also alienating some of your own citizens. You're making people feel like outsiders, and you're breaking the law.
It's a fairness issue, right? You can't be fair to all the religions, so you have to sort of distance yourself.
Yeah, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about, you know, religious freedom and exercising it, and what the limits are. You don't live in an entirely free to do everything you want to do environment. That's called anarchy, and I think even most of you who think you may be oppressed would be opposed to that. But let's go on to John. How you doing?
Fine. How are you guys doing?
Pretty good.
Well, it's the first time I was just going through your program, and I just want to make my opinion. I believe everyone has the right to free speech, just like the atheists and the Christians. I'm a Christian myself. I'm personally calling myself a Christian. I'm non-denomination. I like to believe in what I believe in, and I'm sure the atheists, they're the groups that believe in the same thing, and I can appreciate that. As far as church and state, that should be separated. I have no problem with that. I worked for the legislature for 17 years. I knew everyone all the way up to Bush. I worked with all of them. And I would like to say, though, there are fanatics on both ends, the atheist group and the religious groups.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to be rude or anything. It coincides with each other that you're going to have two groups that are very radical on each other, but then you have, like you guys, that, you know, pretty cool about it. And then you got some, you know, groups, church groups. Well, I'm people that are Christians that can look at both sides of the story, that believe in, you know, Christianity and the Lord. And anyway, my point being is I believe in all views and viewpoints of people, what they have, even though on the atheist side it's you want scientific proof, and on the religious side a lot of people go by the Bible, but other people go besides the Bible, what they believe in their soul. And anyway, I just wanted to express myself on that, and I appreciate your time, and I do believe I was in that rotunda many times for 17 years, going back and forth. And no, I don't. I believe in praying for our soldiers to come home, and in my way to prayer, you know.
See, and I think it'd be quicker just to enact an executive order to bring them home.
Oh yeah, I agree with you 100%. Hey, we shouldn't have been. I won't even go into that. Like I said, I worked for the...
We're probably better hands off.
We have a phrase, in atheists have a phrase, nothing fails like prayer. It's far better to do something than to pray about something.
Well, you can't pray for government. So, I mean, as a Christian, you can pray for the soldiers, you can't pray for the government, because it's going to keep going on. It's a bad deal right now.
You can raise a stink and get your legislators to act for you. So.
Well, I go all the way up to even dealt with Congress, so I've got the full belt on dealing with that, and unfortunately,
you know, I read an article the other day talking about, maybe it might have been yesterday, talking about that there are secular fanatics and religious fanatics as well. You know, and in general, I have no problem accepting that. There are people on extremes of both sides of any issue.
On anything.
But I do think it's worth making the point that in some cases, if you can actually demonstrate it, if you can demonstrate it with facts and evidence and science and logic and reason, right. Being on one extreme doesn't mean you're wrong.
No,
moderate doesn't make you the preferred method. And I realize we're probably not disagreeing on that.
No,
but there are times when you could say and we talked about strong atheism the other day. The proposition which you'll hear in a lot of things, which atheism means you believe there is no God, and that's an absolute statement, and you must have absolute knowledge. And that's absolutely not true. It's kind of like saying if I said there are no leprechauns. I don't claim to know for sure that there are no leprechauns.
I don't either.
There could be leprechauns hiding under rocks or on another planet. But the thing is that the lack of evidence supporting the idea that leprechauns exist and the evidence that they don't is so overwhelming that it's okay for me to make that kind of shortcut. There are no leprechauns. And that's why I think that the arguments against like strong atheism generally fail, because they're misrepresenting it.
Well, I like to see both viewpoints. I mean, I have mine, and I love to talk about different issues with different people, what they believe in, and I feel comfortable with my belief, and I'm sure you gentlemen with yours, on what
we admire you for calling in and listening to the show and watching the show, because I think a lot of people shut off to other viewpoints. So I admire you for taking us on and listening.
Well, I appreciate it. I won't take up much of your time. I had a chance to go to, after my 17 years, after I left the state, I did a little private business legislative research. I had a chance to be a legislative aide in Washington. I said no. And that was under when Bush went up there. And I said no, because I'm not very... I won't get into the political arena there.
It's a big business unto itself, isn't it?
Yeah. Exactly. Well, you gentlemen have a great day.
Okay,
thanks
thank you.
for calling.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it.
Let's do another round of announcements and maybe take another call.
Yeah, we got a couple calls on there.
Or vice versa.
Well, we just talked about Threadgills, but I will mention the email address for one thing. Anybody who doesn't manage to get through, because we're coming down to the last 5 minutes now and may run out of time, can email tv@atheist-community.org. Also, if you are listening to the podcast or something that's not live, you can email tv@atheist-community.org. That goes to all the cast and crew. We'll try to answer as many as we can, as quickly as we can, but you can use that for suggestions and feedback, comments, especially if you're listening outside the Austin area. We like getting email from people letting us know. We've gotten from the UK and Australia and
them foreign countries,
all this just within the last week. So
yeah, we love hearing from folks outside of Austin. That's wonderful. It just warms my heart.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
And let me mention too, since we've mentioned the crew, we have quite a number of folks behind the scenes helping out today, and we really appreciate that. And without them, the show couldn't be possible. So
or at least I'd have to be running back and forth between the control room.
Pushing buttons.
That's just absurd.
So come down and meet them at Threadgills tonight.
Yeah, it's a lot of good work, a lot of good people, and there will be people, not only the cast and crew, but other ACA members joining us down at Threadgills tonight. It's on Riverside. We'll be there somewhere between 6:30 and 6:45. We go on to some more calls real quick?
Yeah.
Is it Mike?
Yeah, that's it.
Hey, Mike.
How's it going? I found the show quite by accident last week, and I think it was a pre-recorded one, and so I was like, I got to find these guys again so I can call in and talk to them.
What day last week?
Must have been Tuesday. Or
was it Tuesday?
Man, it was something like Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yeah. Tuesday's the rebroadcast of the Sunday show.
Right, okay. Well, I wanted to call. I'm an atheist myself, and, now and then I engage in various debates on the Internet, on Christian-based forums. And I wanted to say that I can identify with the frustration that you can have sometimes. For example, the caller that you had to keep putting on hold, and we're pointing out the contradictions with.
I do want to point out that wasn't necessarily his fault. Sometimes we have audio problems where, depending on your phone and which line you're on, you can't actually hear us trying to interrupt you. So I just put him on hold as a shortcut.
But you're right that the debating theists is kind of a rite of passage among atheists, and it's very frustrating.
It is, and as an example, I wanted to share with you guys an experience I had. I was debating the creationism idea as stated by Genesis in the Bible, where basically, you have plants growing and the creation of the earth and yada yada.
Things are in very goofy orders, right?
Right, and day 4, the sun comes around, and this all takes several days, and then, of course, as an afterthought, then trillions of stars are created, this kind of thing. But what I found interesting was the tactic used to try to debunk this was to this community, and I mean people that were experienced in this having like 10,000, 12,000 posts that were avid Christians, resorted to, it kind of broke down, and got off topic, but it resorted to labeling me as a creationist, that I was a creationist. I know, it's absurd. And even there were other people that claimed to be atheists with like few posts. It seemed like they were, I don't know, puppets, saying, yes, you are a creationist. I asked, how can I be a creationist? I don't believe in God, I believe in the theory of evolution, I believe in abiogenesis and this kind of thing. And they said, well, because you have the view that anybody who believes in Genesis must be a creationist, therefore that makes you a creationist.
Huh?
I know. So anyway, what I was getting at,
I don't even want to try and chart that out to prove it's wrong. That's just wrong.
I know. And anyway, what I was getting at is that there is no limit to the level of bizarreness and the rationalization.
Right. Lots of mental gymnastics. Yes, it's kind of sad to watch in some cases, or it's kind of like a freak show of some sort where they'll contort their arguments around, right?
Yeah, and I just couldn't believe that so much of logic, reason, understanding, even of the literature itself, could be just twisted in such a manner. It's like, you know, I need this, so I'm going to make it happen. It has little to do with, you know, what's observable, what's testable, what's rational.
Yeah, a lot of it's about feel good. I hate to cut you off, but we're almost out of time. We'll go ahead and
come join us for dinner.
Yeah.
All right, I will.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Mike. As a reminder, we're going to dinner after the show. We've done that reminder a couple times.
Right.
Feel free and come down. Also,
thank you to our callers. Yeah, we enjoyed hearing from you.
We'll be on live again next Sunday at 4:30. And for ACA members, don't forget that the vote's coming up May 7th. And I think that's about it. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Okay.